My ex called me at midnight to ask, where are the kids? The phone buzzing on my nightstand at 12:17 a.m. made my heart jump straight into my throat. Nothing good ever happens at midnight calls. I fumbled for it in the dark, squinting at the screen, and felt my blood turn to ice water. Mark. My ex-husband's name glowing there like some kind of cruel joke. 6 months. 6 months of absolute radio silence, and now this? I almost declined the call out of pure instinct. Almost. But something made me swipe to answer. Maybe it was the mother in me terrified that somehow, someway, this had to do with Emma and Jake. Even though he'd made it crystal clear in his goodbye note that he wanted nothing to do with them. Hello? My voice came out rougher than I intended. Sarah, thank God. Mark's voice was breathless, panicked in a way I'd never heard before. Not even when Jake had fallen off his bike and needed stitches last year. Not even during any of our worst fights. I need to know, where are the kids? I sat up straighter, instantly alert. The kids were asleep down the hall where they'd been every single night for the past 6 months while he was off playing house with his 24-year-old secretary. Where did he think they were? What do you mean? I kept my voice carefully neutral, even as my pulse hammered against my ribs. The kids, Sarah. Emma and Jake. Where are they right now? The audacity of this man. The sheer, breathtaking audacity. I glanced toward their rooms. Emma's door cracked open just enough to let the hallway nightlight shine in because she was going through a scared of the dark phase. Jake's door firmly shut because at 7 he declared himself too big for baby lights. Both of them safe, sound, and blissfully unaware that the father who'd abandoned them was currently having some kind of midnight crisis. Why are you asking me this? I stood up and walked to my bedroom window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. The same street where he used to live. The same house he'd walked away from with nothing but a suitcase and that devastating note left on the kitchen counter. I need to know they're okay. That they're safe. Since when? The words slipped out before I could stop them, sharp and bitter. There was a pause. A long one. I could hear him breathing, could practically feel him scrambling for words on the other end of the line. Sarah, please. This is important. Are they with you? Are they at the house? Something was very, very wrong with this picture. Mark didn't call to check on the kids. Mark had made it abundantly clear that Emma and Jake were part of his old life, the life he needed freedom from. His exact words, burned into my memory like a brand. But here he was at past midnight, sounding like he was on the verge of a complete breakdown, asking about children he'd voluntarily walked away from. Mark. I kept my voice calm, measured. Why are you calling me right now asking about Emma and Jake? Another pause. Longer this time. And in that silence, I realized something that made a cold smile spread across my face in the dark. He needed something. After 6 months of treating us like we didn't exist, Mark needed something from me. From the kids he'd thrown away like garbage. He started, then stopped. It's complicated. Oh, this was going to be good. Complicated. I let the word hang in the air between us like a blade. You know what was complicated, Mark? Explaining to Emma why Daddy didn't come to her dance recital. Or telling Jake why his father couldn't be bothered to show up for his baseball game. That was complicated. Sarah, please. No. My voice was getting stronger now, the shock wearing off and being replaced by something much more powerful. 6 months of suppressed rage, maybe. 6 months of single parenting, of being both mom and dad, of holding 2 broken-hearted children while they cried themselves to sleep asking what they'd done wrong. You don't get to please me. You made your choice. I heard him take a shaky breath. Look, I know I messed up. Messed up? I almost laughed. Mark, you didn't mess up. You didn't forget to pick up milk or miss a dentist appointment. You abandoned your family. You walked out on a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old who worshipped you. I can't do this right now, okay? I just need to know where they are. The desperation in his voice was fascinating. I'd never heard Mark sound desperate about anything, least of all our children. During our entire marriage, I'd been the one handling school meetings, doctor appointments, bedtime stories. He'd been the fun weekend dad when it was convenient, the one who showed up for the highlight reel but disappeared when things got messy. Why? I pressed. What's so urgent that you're calling me at midnight asking about kids you wanted nothing to do with? Silence. Long enough that I wondered if the call had dropped. Mark? They're not with my mom, are they? I blinked. Your mom? Why would they be with your mom? She hasn't seen them since you left either, remember? Amazing how your entire family just evaporated along with you. What about my sister? Did you maybe take them to visit Amy? This was getting stranger by the minute. Mark, what is going on? Why are you asking me where your children might be when you spent 6 months pretending they don't exist? I'm not, Sarah, I'm not pretending anything. I just need to know they're safe and accounted for. Safe and accounted for. I repeated his words slowly. Like their inventory. Like there's something you need to check off a list. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? Because I'm having a really hard time understanding why the man who wrote, and I quote, I need my freedom and a fresh start without the complications of family life is suddenly so concerned about his children's whereabouts. Another pause. This one felt different. Heavier. Someone. He started, then stopped. Look, it doesn't matter why. Can you just confirm they're with you? At home? Someone. Someone what? Someone told him something? Someone was asking about them? The pieces weren't fitting together, but I could sense there was a much bigger picture here that Mark was desperately trying to keep from me. And suddenly, I realized I held all the power in this conversation. For the first time in our entire relationship, marriage, divorce, and aftermath, Mark needed something from me more than I needed anything from him. You know what, Mark? I settled back against my headboard, getting comfortable. I think I deserve some answers before I tell you anything about my children. Your children? That's right. Mine. You gave up any claim to them when you walked out that door. The sharp intake of breath on the other end told me my arrow had hit its target. Sarah, you know that's not. Mark's voice cracked. They're my kids too. Are they? I let the question sit there like poison between us. Because fathers don't usually disappear for 6 months without a single phone call, birthday card, or child support payment. I've been sending money. Bullshit. The word came out harder than I intended, but I didn't care. My bank account and our kids' empty college funds say otherwise. But please, continue lying to me at 12:30 in the morning. It's really bringing back memories of our marriage. I heard something crash in the background of his call, followed by what sounded like a woman's voice asking if everything was okay. Is that her? I asked. Is Jessica there listening to you panic about the children you abandoned for her? Sarah. Oh my god, she is. She's right there. Something clicked into place, a puzzle piece I didn't even know I was looking for. Mark, is she pregnant? The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. Mark? Is your secretary pregnant? That has nothing to do with. Holy shit, she is. I actually started laughing. Not the nice kind of laughter, the kind that comes from a dark place where 6 months of pain turns into something sharp and dangerous. Let me guess, she wants to meet the kids. She wants to play stepmommy? Or wait, even better, her parents want to meet their grandchildren to be siblings? Sarah, stop. Which is it? Because something has you calling me in the middle of the night asking about children you wrote off like a tax deduction. Did you tell her you were father of the year? Did you forget to mention the part where you literally abandoned Emma and Jake? It's not like that. Then what is it like? Because from where I'm sitting, alone, again, taking care of our kids alone, again, it looks exactly like that. I heard muffled voices, like he'd covered the phone. When he came back, his voice was strained. Her parents are coming to visit next weekend. They want to meet Emma and Jake. There it was. The truth, finally bleeding through his desperation. They want to meet Emma and Jake, I repeated slowly. The Emma and Jake you haven't seen since March 15th. The Emma who stopped asking when Daddy was coming home sometime in May. The Jake who told his teacher that his father died because it was easier than explaining that you chose to leave. I didn't choose. You absolutely chose. You chose her over them. You chose freedom over responsibility. You chose to become a stranger to your own children. I was pacing now, my bare feet silent on the hardwood floor. And now what, you need them to perform for your new in-laws? You need them to make you look like something other than the selfish bastard who walked out on his family? Her father is traditional. He believes in family values. Family values. I wanted to throw the phone across the room. The irony is actually painful, Mark. If he finds out I haven't seen the kids in months, he'll think I'm a deadbeat dad? A man who abandons his responsibilities? Someone who can't be trusted with his own children? I smiled in the darkness. Yeah, that would be terrible if he thought that. Sarah, please. I know I screwed up, but I need your help here. You need my help. I savored each word. You need me to what, exactly? Pretend the last 6 months didn't happen? Bring the kids over so you can play dress up as a devoted father? I just need them to be there. One afternoon. That's all. The audacity was breathtaking. After everything, he wanted me to deliver his abandoned children like props for his new live performance. No. The word came out clean and simple. Sarah. No, Mark. You don't get to use them like that. What if I paid you? The words hung in the air like a slap. I actually pulled the phone away from my ear to stare at it, wondering if I'd heard him correctly. Did you just offer to pay me to rent your children? That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. My voice was deadly quiet now. How much, Mark? What's the going rate for pretending you're not a complete failure as a father? What's an afternoon of fake family photos worth to you? $2,000. I sat down hard on my bed. $2,000. Said just like that, like he was negotiating for a used car. Emma's dance classes cost $60 a month, money I'd been struggling to find since he left. Jake needed new school shoes, and I'd been putting it off for 3 weeks, trying to stretch our grocery budget. $2,000, I repeated. Cash. Just for one afternoon. Her parents fly back to Denver on Sunday. The practical part of my brain started calculating against my will. $2,000 would cover the kids' back-to-school clothes, Emma's dance fees, Jake's soccer registration I couldn't afford. It would fix a weird noise my car had been making for 2 months. But the mother in me recoiled at the thought of putting Emma and Jake through seeing him again, only to have him disappear once more when his performance was over. You haven't asked how they are. What? In this entire conversation, Mark, you haven't asked how they are. Whether Emma still has nightmares. Whether Jake still wets the bed sometimes because his anxiety got so bad after you left. You haven't asked about school, or friends, or whether they miss you. Silence. Emma drew a picture last month for art class. My family. Want to guess who wasn't in it? Sarah, don't. She drew me, and Jake, and our neighbor's dog. Mrs. Henderson's ancient golden retriever made it into our family portrait, but their father didn't. Think about that. I heard him clear his throat. How is Emma's dancing going? Too little, too late. She quit. Right after her recital that you missed. Said dancing wasn't fun anymore. And Jake? Is he still playing baseball? He was. Until he asked me why all the other dads came to games but his didn't. Hard to explain that one to a 7-year-old. I paused, letting that sink in. He quit too. Said he didn't like sports anymore. The silence stretched longer this time. When Mark finally spoke, his voice was rougher. I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen. You made it happen. I stood up and walked to Emma's room, peering through the crack in her door. She was sleeping peacefully, her dark hair spread across her pillow, completely unaware that the father who'd broken her heart was 12 miles away trying to buy his way back into her life for a weekend performance. 3,000, Mark said suddenly. I closed my eyes. You think this is about money? 5,000. Sarah, $5,000, cash. Just let me pick them up Saturday morning and bring them back Sunday night. Pick them up? I laughed bitterly. You want to take them overnight? To the apartment you share with the woman you left us for? You want Emma and Jake to sleep under the same roof as the reason their family exploded? Jessica's really great with kids. Stop talking. My voice cut through his words like ice. Do not tell me how great your pregnant girlfriend is with children while my kids are in therapy trying to understand why their daddy doesn't love them anymore. I do love him. No, you don't. People who love their children don't offer to pay their mother $5,000 for visitation rights after 6 months of abandonment. That's not love, Mark. That's desperation. 7,000. The number hit me like a physical blow. $7,000. More money than I'd seen in one place since before the divorce, when we still had shared accounts and a shared life. Jesus Christ, Mark. Stop. 10,000, then. Sarah, I can get $10,000 by Friday. I found myself gripping the phone so hard my knuckles were white. Where the hell are you getting $10,000? You couldn't manage child support, but you can magic up 10 grand for a weekend performance? Jessica's father gave us money for a house down payment. I can use some of that. Of course. Of course Jessica's daddy was funding their new life while Mark's actual children went without. The children he'd legally obligated to support but somehow couldn't find the money for. Let me get this straight, I said, pacing back to my room. You're willing to steal from your house fund, money that her father gave you, to rent your abandoned children for a dog and pony show? It's not stealing, it's just. What happens when Jessica finds out you spent her dad's house money on this? What happens when her traditional, family values father realizes his daughter's baby daddy is such a deadbeat that he has to pay his ex-wife to see his own kids? The pause told me he hadn't thought that far ahead. I'll figure something out. You'll figure something out, I repeated. Like you figured out how to be a father? Like you figured out how to pay child support? God damn it, Sarah, I'm trying to fix this. No, you're trying to cover this up. There's a difference. I sat on my bed, suddenly exhausted. You don't want to fix anything with Emma and Jake. You want to use them as props so your new girlfriend's family doesn't realize what kind of man she's having a baby with. That's not, look, maybe after this weekend, maybe we can work something out. Visitation, or what? You'll remember you have children until the next inconvenient moment? Until Jessica decides she doesn't want her baggage around her perfect new baby? I heard voices in the background again, more urgent this time. Jessica was getting louder, asking what was taking so long. She doesn't know, does she? The realization hit me like lightning. Mark, she doesn't know you haven't seen them in 6 months. She knows we're divorced. But she doesn't know about the note. She doesn't know you walked away completely. I started laughing again, that dark sound that was becoming too familiar. Oh my God, what did you tell her? That you're the devoted dad who sees his kids every other weekend? That you're just giving me space to heal from the divorce? Sarah, does she know you've never paid a dime in child support? Does she know Emma cried for 3 weeks straight after you left? Does she know Jake started stuttering again because he was so stressed? Stop it. Does she know that your son asked me if daddy died because it was easier for his 7-year-old brain to process death than abandonment? Stop it. What story did you tell her parents, Mark? I'm dying to know what version of reality you've been living in where you're still father of the year. The silence stretched so long I thought he'd hung up. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. I told him I have the kids every other weekend. That we have a good co-parenting relationship. Jesus. I rubbed my forehead, feeling a headache building behind my eyes. You told them you're an active father. You've been pretending for months that you see Emma and Jake regularly. It started small. Jessica asked about them early on, and I made it sound like everything was normal. Amicable. And then her parents started asking about meeting their future grandchild siblings. Her mother keeps talking about family dinners. About how excited she is to have more grandchildren to spoil. The web of lies was becoming clear, and I was almost impressed by how thoroughly he'd trapped himself. So now you need actual children to match your story. 15,000, Sarah. That's everything I can get together by Friday. $15,000. I closed my eyes and tried not to think about Emma's college fund, sitting empty since Mark cleaned it out before he left. I tried not to think about how that money could change everything for us. How it could mean Emma could go back to dance class, how Jake could rejoin his baseball team. How I could stop lying awake at 3 a.m. calculating whether I could afford both groceries and the electric bill. But $15,000 wouldn't undo the damage he'd already done. You know what the worst part is? I said, walking back to Jake's door and listening to his soft, steady breathing. You're not even asking to see them because you miss them. You're asking because you need them to cover up your lies. I do miss them. Bullshit. You miss the idea of them. You miss being able to tell people you're a dad without actually having to do any of the work. I heard Jessica's voice getting closer, more insistent. She was asking who he was talking to at 1 in the morning. You need to go, Mark said quickly. Jessica's getting suspicious. Oh, we can't have that, I said sweetly. Can't have your pregnant girlfriend finding out that you're begging your ex-wife for access to the children you abandoned. Sarah, please. Just think about it. $15,000. All you have to do is bring them by on Saturday afternoon. All I have to do, I repeated slowly, is traumatize my children by forcing them to spend time with a father who destroyed their sense of security, so that your new girlfriend's parents don't realize they raised a daughter who has terrible taste in men. It doesn't have to be traumatic. We could make it fun. Take them to that pizza place they like, maybe the arcade. The pizza place they like? I almost choked. Mark, you don't even remember their favorite restaurant. Jake's been lactose intolerant for 8 months. 8 months. Since 2 weeks after you left, probably from stress. I didn't know that. Of course you didn't. You also don't know that Emma lost her first tooth, or that Jake learned to ride his bike without training wheels, or that they both made honor roll last semester despite everything you put them through. I could hear Jessica getting closer, her voice sharp now. Mark, who are you talking to? It's almost 1 in the morning. I have to go, he whispered. Wait. Something had been nagging at me throughout this entire conversation. Mark, how did you even know to call me tonight? What made you suddenly panic about where the kids were? Another pause. A long one. Mark? Her parents asked if they could video call with Emma and Jake tomorrow night. Jessica told them it was my weekend, so they'd be at my place. The final piece clicked into place. So you had to call me at midnight to figure out how to produce children you haven't seen in half a year. I panicked, okay? I didn't know what else to do. You could try honesty. Revolutionary concept, I know. 20,000, he said desperately. Sarah, I can get 20,000 by Thursday. That's enough for both kids' college funds, right? A fresh start for all of you. $20,000. The number hung in the air like a temptation. 20,000 would mean Emma could have her dance classes and summer camp. Jake could have his therapy sessions without me worrying about the co-pays. I could fix my car, update their clothes, maybe even take them on a real vacation instead of camping in our backyard. But it would also mean watching Emma's face crumble when Mark disappeared again after his performance was over. It would mean explaining to Jake why Daddy suddenly wanted to see them, only to vanish once more when his new family was born. Mark. Jessica's voice was right there now, no longer background noise. Who is that? What's going on? I have to go, he hissed into the phone. Yes, I said quietly. You do. 25,000. The words tumbled out of Mark's mouth in a rush, barely audible over Jessica's increasingly suspicious questions in the background. Sarah, $25,000. That's more than you made last year at the bookstore. I stopped pacing. He was right, 25,000 was more than my annual salary. It was more money than I'd ever had access to, even when we were married and supposedly building a life together. How do you even have access to that much? I asked, genuinely curious now. You couldn't manage 300 a month in child support, but you can pull 25 grand out of thin air? Jessica's trust fund. Her grandmother left her money for emergencies. A trust fund. I let out a low whistle. Of course she has a trust fund. And you consider covering up your deadbeat dad's status an emergency worthy of grandma's inheritance? Mark. Jessica's voice was sharp now, demanding. I can hear you whispering. What the hell is going on? I heard him moving, probably trying to find somewhere more private. The sound was muffled for a moment, then clearer. I'm in the bathroom, he said quietly. She thinks I'm talking to my lawyer about some paperwork. Your lawyer? I shook my head in amazement. The lies just keep coming, don't they? Does she know about any part of your actual life, or is everything completely fabricated? Sarah, focus. $25,000. Cash. You could quit that job you hate, maybe go back to school like you always wanted. The kids could have everything, private school, college funds, whatever they need. He remembered that I'd wanted to go back to school. Somehow that small detail hitting its mark made me angrier than anything else he'd said. Don't, I warned. Don't you dare use my dreams as leverage. You're the reason I had to give up school in the first place, remember? Someone had to stay home with the babies while you built your career. That was different. Different how? Different because back then I was useful to you? Back then my sacrifice benefited your life instead of complicating it? I heard water running. He'd actually turned on the bathroom faucet to cover our conversation. The level of deception was almost artful. I can have the money by Wednesday, he said urgently. Cash, in an envelope. All you have to do is show up Saturday at noon with Emma and Jake, stay for a few hours while her parents visit, and then you're $25,000 richer. And what happens on Sunday when they fly back to Denver? What happens the next weekend when there's no performance to put on? We'll figure something out. Maybe I could start seeing them regularly again. Maybe. I tasted the word like poison. You want to gamble my children's emotional well-being on maybe. Our children. No, Mark. You gave up that right when you wrote that note. You remember the note, don't you? The one where you specifically said you wanted no contact with them because they represented your old life and were preventing you from moving forward? The bathroom fan kicked on in the background. He was really committing to this charade. I was confused then. Going through a midlife crisis or something. I wasn't thinking clearly. A midlife crisis. I almost admired his ability to minimize. Is that what we're calling it? Because I called it abandonment. Emma called it Daddy not loving us anymore. Jake called it being broken as a family. Sarah, please. I'm begging you. Mark had never begged for anything in the 15 years I'd known him. Not when we were trying to get pregnant with Emma. Not when his father died and he needed emotional support. Not even when I'd asked him to try marriage counseling before filing for divorce. But he was begging now. For his abandoned children to save him from the consequences of his own lies. I need an answer by tomorrow night, he whispered. Her parents land Thursday morning. The deadline hung between us like a blade. Less than 24 hours to decide whether to let him use Emma and Jake as props in his elaborate deception. You know what I think, Mark? What? I think Jessica's going to find out eventually. Maybe not this weekend, maybe not next month, but eventually. And when she realizes who you really are, when she understands that you're capable of abandoning your own children, she's going to run. That's not. And then where will you be? Alone, again, having traumatized Emma and Jake one more time for absolutely nothing. The silence stretched long enough that I wondered if Jessica had discovered his bathroom hiding spot. 30,000, he finally whispered. That's everything I can possibly access. $30,000, Sarah. For one afternoon. $30,000. I closed my eyes and made my decision. You want to know something funny? I said, settling back against my headboard. $30,000 is almost exactly what you owe in back child support. 6 months at $500 a month, which is what the court ordered, not what you've actually paid. I know I'm behind. Behind? I laughed softly. Mark, you're not behind. You're absent. There's a difference. I could hear Jessica pounding on the bathroom door now, her voice muffled but clearly agitated. Mark, what are you doing in there? You've been in there for 20 minutes. She's getting suspicious, I observed. What's your exit strategy? Fake food poisoning? Mysterious work emergency? Just give me an answer, Sarah. Please. Will you do it or not? I walked to my window again, looking out at the quiet street. Mrs. Henderson's porch light was still on. She always left it on for her late-night walks with that ancient golden retriever Emma had drawn into our family portrait. The same Mrs. Henderson who'd been bringing us casseroles every Friday since Mark left, who'd watched the kids when I had to work late, who'd stepped in to fill the gaps he'd left behind. You know what Emma asked me last week? I said quietly. Sarah, I don't have time. She asked if we were poor now. Because her friend Madison got new school clothes and Emma is still wearing the same uniforms from last year that are getting too small. I paused, letting that sink in. I told her we weren't poor, we were just being careful with money. But $30,000 would mean she could have new clothes that actually fit. I heard him take a shaky breath, probably thinking he was winning. And Jake needs new cleats if he wants to rejoin baseball in the spring. The ones he has are 2 sizes too small, but I kept hoping his feet would stop growing for a few months. I traced patterns on the condensation forming on my window. 30,000 would cover cleats, registration fees, maybe even a summer camp. Yes, Mark whispered urgently. Exactly. Think about everything you could give him. Mark. Jessica's voice was loud enough that I could hear it clearly now. I'm calling the front desk if you don't answer me right now. But here's the thing, I continued as if she hadn't spoken. Emma doesn't need new clothes more than she needs to feel safe. And Jake doesn't need baseball cleats more than he needs to trust that the adults in his life won't abandon him again. The pounding on the door stopped. I heard Jessica's voice getting quieter, more distant. She was probably going to call the front desk. You have maybe 2 minutes before she gets hotel security to check on you, I said. Better make them count. 35,000, he said desperately. Sarah, that's everything. The house fund, Jessica's emergency account, I'll cash out my 401k if I have to. $35,000. You'd steal from your pregnant girlfriend and destroy your own retirement for one afternoon with kids you walked away from. I'd do anything to fix this. No, Mark. You'd do anything to avoid the consequences. There's a difference. I heard a key card beeping, then Jessica's voice getting loud again. She'd gotten a spare key from the front desk. Mark, what the hell are you? Who are you talking to? I have to go, he hissed. Yes, you do. And Mark? What? Call me back tomorrow night at exactly 11 p.m. Same time as tonight. I'll have an answer for you then. I hung up before he could respond, cutting off the sound of Jessica's increasingly shrill questions. Then I turned off my phone completely and sat in the darkness of my bedroom, listening to my children sleep peacefully down the hall. $35,000. I had 24 hours to decide if I was willing to sell their hearts for it. The next morning came too early, dragged in by Jake's nightmare at 4 a.m. He'd been having them more frequently lately, always the same one where he was calling for someone who couldn't hear him. I held him until he fell back asleep, his small body finally relaxing against mine, and I knew with perfect clarity that no amount of money was worth putting him through seeing Mark again. But by 7 a.m., making breakfast on the last of our bread with eggs that were 3 days past expiration, $35,000 felt like a lifeline I'd be insane to refuse. Mommy, my uniform is getting too small again, Emma said, tugging at her school shirt that was definitely too tight across her shoulders. Can we get new ones soon? Soon, sweetheart, I promised, the same promise I'd been making for 2 months. Jake appeared in the kitchen wearing shoes I'd been hoping would last until Christmas, the soles separating from the canvas in a way that meant wet socks every time it rained. I need lunch money, he said quietly. I forgot to tell you yesterday. I checked my wallet. $12. Enough for his lunch account today, but that would leave me with $4 until Friday's paycheck. I handed him the money and started calculating whether I could make dinner from the random cans in our pantry. This was the reality Mark had left us with. This constant arithmetic of survival, this endless choosing between necessities. By the time I dropped the kids at school and got to the bookstore, I'd mentally spent those $35,000 17 different ways. Emma's dance classes. Jake's therapy. A reliable car. Their college funds. Maybe even a small apartment in a better school district. You look like hell, my coworker Diana observed, setting a coffee on the counter beside me. Rough night? Mark called. She nearly choked on her drink. Mark called? You're Mark? Deadbeat dad Mark who hasn't been heard from since spring? That's the one. I told her everything while we sorted through the morning delivery. About the midnight panic call, about Jessica's pregnancy and traditional parents, about $35,000 in exchange for one afternoon of pretending Mark was still a father. Diana listened without interrupting, which was why I'd hired her in the first place. She had this way of hearing the whole story before offering opinions. Jesus, she finally said when I finished. 35 grand. I know. That's more than this place makes in profit in 2 years. I know. She was quiet for a long moment, pricing books with unnecessary focus. What are you going to tell him? I don't know. I slumped against the counter. The practical part of me says take the money and run. Emma needs so much, and Jake, God, Diana, you should see his shoes. But I keep thinking about Emma's face when you left. She waited by the window every afternoon for 3 weeks, convinced he was just working late. How do I explain to her that Daddy wants to see her now because his new girlfriend's parents are visiting? Diana set down her pricing gun and looked at me directly. What does your gut say? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I knew immediately who it was. Asterisk Sarah, it's Mark. I know we said tonight, but Jessica's parents moved their flight. They land in 4 hours. I need an answer now. We'll double the offer if you can have them ready by 2 p.m. today. Please asterisk. I stared at the message, my hands actually shaking. What is it? Diana asked. I showed her the text. She read it twice, then looked up at me with something like awe. $70,000, she whispered. Sarah, that's life-changing money. $70,000. For 6 hours' notice. The desperation in that text was almost frightening. My hands were trembling as I stared at the text. $70,000. The number seemed impossible, like it belonged to someone else's life. I have to pick up the kids, I heard myself saying. School doesn't end until 3:15, but I could get them early. Fake a doctor's appointment or something. Diana grabbed my arm. Sarah, stop. Listen to yourself. But I was already calculating. 70,000 would mean Emma could go to that performing arts camp she'd been dreaming about before Mark left. Jake could have not just therapy, but the specialized reading help his teacher recommended that insurance won't cover. I could put a down payment on a house in the district with a better elementary school. My phone buzzed again. Asterisk, please, Sarah. Her father just called Jessica. He wants to video chat with the kids in an hour to get to know them before they land. I'm completely screwed if you don't help me, asterisk. Oh God, I whispered, showing Diana the second message. He promised Jessica's dad a video call with Emma and Jake. Today. In an hour. Diana's eyes widened. He's been telling them he sees the kids regularly, and now they want proof. A third text came through immediately. Asterisk, I know this is insane, but I'm desperate. 80K, please. I'll have the cash by tonight. Jessica thinks I'm picking up the kids from your house right now, asterisk. $80,000. I actually had to sit down on the stool behind the counter because my knees went weak. He told Jessica he was picking them up from me, I said, my voice sounding strange and distant. Right now. She thinks he's on his way to get them for a normal custody visit. Jesus Christ, Sarah. How deep do these lies go? My phone rang. Mark's name on the screen. Don't answer it, Diana said quickly. But I was already swiping to accept. Mark. Sarah, thank God. Listen, I need you to help me think. Her dad wants to FaceTime with Emma and Jake at 2:30. I told Jessica I'd have them back at my place by then, but obviously I can't. Because you don't know where they are, I finished. Because you haven't seen them in 6 months. I'm in my car outside your old house. The one I used to live in. His voice was shaking. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes trying to figure out what to do. Jessica's texting me asking why it's taking so long. I could picture him there, parked in front of our house, the house that was now just mine and the kids. Probably staring at Jake's bike in the driveway, Emma's chalk art still faded on the sidewalk from last weekend. What did you tell Jessica about why you needed to pick them up today specifically? I said you had a work emergency and asked if I could take my regular weekend early. He laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. She was actually proud of me. Said it showed how good our co-parenting relationship is. The irony was suffocating. Mark, what happens when her parents want to see them again? What happens at Christmas, or birthdays, or when the new baby comes and they want all the grandkids together? I don't know. I can't think past the next 2 hours right now. Diana was watching me with growing concern, probably seeing something in my face that I couldn't feel yet. Sarah, Mark continued, I'll do anything. Name your price. Anything you want. And that's when I realized something that changed everything. Mark wasn't just scared of Jessica's parents finding out the truth. He was terrified of Jessica finding out. Which meant she still didn't know. After all these months, after getting pregnant, after planning a life together, she had no idea who he really was. Mark, I said slowly, does Jessica know you're talking to me right now? The pause was answer enough. She thinks you're inside my house, picking up your children for a normal visit. Sarah, please. What's she doing right now while you sit outside our old house? She's setting up her laptop for the video call. Making snacks for when I bring them back. Making snacks for children she'd never met, whose father had abandoned them. I smiled in the darkness of my decision. I'll call you back in 10 minutes, Mark. I hung up on Mark and immediately called Westfield Elementary. Hi, this is Sarah Chen, Emma, and Jake's mom. I need to pick them up early today for a family emergency. The secretary's voice was warm and familiar. Of course, Mrs. Chen. Should I have them ready at the main office? Actually, could you tell them their dad is here to pick them up? The words felt like acid in my mouth, but I needed to see this through. Oh, how wonderful. The kids will be so excited. It's been such a long time since Mr. Chen has picked them up. Too long, I thought. Yes, they'll be surprised. After hanging up, I turned to Diana, who was staring at me like I'd lost my mind. Sarah, what are you doing? Something I should have done months ago. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. Can you handle the store for a couple hours? Where are you going? To pick up my children and take them to see their father. Diana caught my arm as I passed. The man who abandoned them? Sarah, you just spent 20 minutes explaining why this was a terrible idea, and now I'm going to let him explain to Emma and Jake why he hasn't seen them in 6 months. In front of his pregnant girlfriend and her family values parents. I smiled, and even I could hear how sharp it sounded. He wants his children? He can have them. All of them. The tears, the questions, the hurt feelings he caused. You're not seriously considering taking $80,000 too. I'm not taking a penny. The clarity was startling. I'm giving Mark exactly what he asked for. Access to his kids. Just not the way he imagined it. My phone was ringing again as I got to my car. Mark, obviously panicking as his timeline collapsed. Sarah, where are you? I've been sitting outside the house for 30 minutes. Jessica's starting to ask questions. I'm on my way to get Emma and Jake from school, I said, starting my engine. Meet me at your apartment complex in 45 minutes. What? No, that's not. We need to talk first. We need to prepare them. Prepare them for what, Mark? To lie for you? To pretend the last 6 months didn't happen? Sarah, you don't understand. Jessica's parents are very traditional, very religious. If they think I'm an unfit father. You are an unfit father. I pulled out of the bookstore parking lot, heading toward the elementary school. That's not a perception problem, Mark. That's reality. Her father owns 3 car dealerships in Denver. He's already offered me a job managing the new location here. If this falls apart. Everything clicked into place. This isn't just about impressing them. You need Jessica's daddy's money. The silence told me I'd hit the target. Jesus, Mark. You're not just using Emma and Jake as props. You're using them to secure your financial future. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. You burned through Jessica's trust fund so fast you need her father's job offer to survive. I turned into the school parking lot, my hand steady on the wheel for the first time in hours. How much of her money have you already spent? Sarah. How much, Mark? Most of it, he whispered. The apartment deposit, the car, some investments that didn't work out. You gambled away your pregnant girlfriend's inheritance. I was trying to build something for our future. No, you were being you. The same man who emptied our kids' college funds before you left. I parked outside the school's main entrance and saw Emma and Jake waiting by the office windows, their faces pressed against the glass, looking for their father who was supposed to be picking them up. My heart broke and hardened simultaneously. 45 minutes, Mark. Your apartment. Come alone, or don't come at all. Sarah, wait. I hung up and walked into the school to collect my children, who were about to learn some very difficult truths about their father. The walk from the school office to my car felt like a funeral march. Emma skipped beside me, chattering about her art project, while Jake dragged his backpack and asked 3 times if we were really going to see Daddy. Is he taking us for ice cream? Emma asked, climbing into her booster seat. I want to tell him about my loose tooth. I adjusted the rearview mirror so I could see both their faces, Emma's bright with anticipation, Jake's cautious but hopeful. 6 months of abandonment, and they were still ready to forgive him everything for one afternoon of attention. We're going to his apartment, I said carefully. He has some people he wants you to meet. What people? Jake's voice was smaller now, that worried tone he'd developed since Mark left. His girlfriend's parents are visiting. I started the engine, buying myself a few seconds. They wanted to meet you. Emma's face scrunched in confusion. Daddy has a girlfriend? The innocence in her question nearly broke me. Of course they didn't know about Jessica. In their minds, Mark had simply vanished one day, like a magician's trick in reverse. Yes, sweetheart. Her name is Jessica. Is that why he moved away? Jake asked quietly. I met his eyes in the mirror. 7 years old, and he was already connecting dots I'd hoped he was too young to see. That's something you'll have to ask your dad. My phone buzzed with another text from Mark, *, please reconsider. We need to prepare them for this. They can't just show up without warning, *. I texted back while stopped at a red light, *6 months, Mark. You've had 6 months to prepare for this conversation, *. His response was immediate, *. Jessica's parents are already suspicious. Her father asked why I never talk about Emma and Jake. If they see how confused the kids are, *. Then maybe you should have thought about that before abandoning them, I typed back. The apartment complex was nicer than I'd expected, one of those new developments with a pool and a fitness center that we never could have afforded when we were married. Jessica's trust fund money, no doubt, back when Mark still had access to it. I parked in front of Building C and turned to face my children. Listen to me, both of you. Your daddy is going to introduce you to some people today. They might ask you questions about visits or time you've spent with him. I took a deep breath. I want you to tell the truth about everything. Always tell the truth, okay? Emma nodded solemnly. Jake's eyes were getting that worried look again. What if the truth makes Daddy sad, he asked. Then Daddy should have made better choices, I said gently. The truth isn't your job to manage, baby. It's your job to be honest. Mark was waiting by the entrance, pacing like a caged animal. When he saw my car, he practically ran over, his face a mix of relief and terror. Thank God you're here, he said as I got out. But Sarah, listen, Jessica's father is really intense, and if the kids say anything about... About what? About you abandoning them? Emma and Jake were still in the car, watching through the windows as their father gestured frantically at me. Her parents are upstairs right now, Mark whispered urgently. Traditional Catholic family from Denver. Jessica's father served in the military, very strict about family values and responsibility. If he realizes that his daughter picked a deadbeat dad? That she's having a baby with someone who walked out on his existing children? Mark's face was pale, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool October afternoon. Sarah, please. I'm begging you. Just coach them a little. Tell them to say they've been staying with you recently, or that we do video calls, or... No. The word hung between us like a wall. I won't teach my children to lie for you, Mark. Not today, not ever. I walked back to the car and opened the back doors. Come on, guys. Time to see Daddy's new home. Emma bounced out of the car first, running straight to Mark with the uninhibited joy that only a 5-year-old could maintain after 6 months of abandonment. Daddy. I missed you so much. Look, I lost a tooth. She opened her mouth wide to show him the gap in her smile. Mark knelt down and caught her in a hug, and for just a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I'd once loved. The father who used to read bedtime stories and make pancakes shaped like animals on Saturday mornings. Then Jake approached more slowly, hanging back near my legs. Hi, Dad, he said quietly, not moving forward for a hug. Hey, buddy. Mark's voice cracked slightly. You got taller. Yeah. Mom says I grew 3 inches since. Jake trailed off, not finishing the sentence. Since you left. The words hung in the air anyway. We should go upstairs, Mark said quickly, standing and taking Emma's hand. Everyone's waiting to meet you. As we walked through the lobby, Emma chattered about school and her art class, while Jake remained silent beside me. The elevator ride to the 4th floor felt like ascending to an execution. Now remember, Mark said desperately as we stood outside apartment 4B, Mr. and Mrs. Rodriguez are very nice, but they're not used to complicated family situations. So if they ask about our visits or anything like that, we'll tell the truth, Jake said clearly, looking directly at his father. Mark's face went white. Jake, buddy, sometimes the truth can be confusing for people who don't understand. The truth is you left us, Jake continued, his 7-year-old voice steady and devastating. The truth is you didn't come to my baseball games or Emma's dance recital. The truth is Mommy cries sometimes after we go to bed. Jake, I said softly, putting my hand on his shoulder. It's okay, Mom. You said to tell the truth. Mark looked like he might throw up. Sarah, please. Can we just have 5 minutes too? The apartment door swung open, revealing a young woman with perfectly styled blonde hair and a growing belly hidden under an expensive-looking sweater. Jessica. There you are. I was starting to worry. She stopped mid-sentence, her smile faltering as she took in the scene. Mark's panicked face. My presence. The two children who were supposed to be familiar fixtures in her boyfriend's life but were clearly strangers to her. You must be Emma and Jake, she said carefully, her voice uncertain. I'm Jessica. Emma waved shyly, suddenly bashful. Jake just nodded. And you're Sarah? Jessica's eyes moved to me, confusion growing. I thought Mark was just picking up the kids from your house. Change of plans, I said pleasantly. I thought it would be nice to meet you properly. From inside the apartment came a booming voice. Jessica, bring them in here. We're all set up for the video call. Jessica's father appeared in the doorway, a tall, broad-shouldered man in his 60s wearing a crisp polo shirt and the kind of confident smile that spoke of decades in business. You must be Mark's kids. He beamed at Emma and Jake. I'm Grandpa Frank. Well, I will be soon enough. Your dad talks about you two all the time. Jake looked up at me with those two wise eyes. He does? The question was innocent enough, but it carried the weight of 6 months of silence. Frank didn't catch the undertone, but Jessica did. I watched her face as the pieces started clicking together, Mark's nervousness, the kids' confusion, my unexpected presence. Come in, Frank continued, ushering us all inside. Margaret's got the laptop all set up. We want to introduce you to your other grandparents back in Denver. As we walked into the apartment, I caught Jessica staring at Mark with growing suspicion. She was starting to realize that something about this picture was very, very wrong. The living room was a stage set for the perfect family moment, laptop positioned on the coffee table, couch arranged for optimal camera angles, even a plate of homemade cookies that Jessica had clearly spent time arranging. Margaret Rodriguez, a silver-haired woman with kind eyes and Jessica's same smile, was adjusting the laptop screen when we entered. Oh my goodness, there they are. Margaret's face lit up as she saw Emma and Jake. Come here, sweethearts. We're going to call Grandma and Grandpa Rodriguez so they can meet you before their flight tomorrow. Emma, ever the performer, bounced over to the couch. But Jake hung back, his small hand finding mine. I don't understand, he whispered, just loud enough for Jessica to hear. Why do they want to meet us? We don't know them. The room went very quiet. Margaret looked confused, Frank's confident smile wavered, and Jessica's eyes snapped to Mark with laser focus. What does he mean, they don't know us? Jessica asked slowly. Mark, you said the kids were excited about meeting my parents. Mark's face had gone from pale to gray. They're just shy. You know how kids are with new people. But I'm not new, Jessica said, her voice getting sharper. We've been together for 8 months. These kids should know who I am. Emma, oblivious to the tension, piped up helpfully. We just met you today. Daddy never told us he had a girlfriend. The silence that followed was deafening. Frank cleared his throat. Mark, son, maybe there's been some miscommunication. You said you had the kids every other weekend, that they knew Jessica well. They do know me, Mark said desperately. We haven't had much time together lately because Sarah's been busy with work. Jake looked up at me with those serious eyes. Mom, why is Daddy lying? My heart broke for him. 7 years old, and he could see right through his father's desperation. I don't know, baby, I said honestly. Jessica stood up abruptly. Mark, can I talk to you in the kitchen? Right now. Jessica, let me explain. Kitchen. Now. Her voice had ice in it that I recognized, the same tone I'd used during our worst fights, when I discovered his credit card debts or caught him in smaller lies that seemed insignificant compared to this moment. As they disappeared around the corner, I could hear the beginning of their argument. Jessica's voice, sharp and betrayed. 8 months, Mark. 8 months I've been planning a life with you, and your kids don't even know who I am? Frank and Margaret exchanged glances, clearly trying to process what they were witnessing. Emma had found the remote and was examining it with intense 5-year-old focus, but Jake was listening to every word coming from the kitchen. Mark's told us so much about his relationship with you children, Margaret said carefully, sitting down beside Emma. He said you love coming to visit. We don't visit Daddy, Emma said matter-of-factly, still fiddling with the remote. He went away when I was 4. Mom says he needed space to think. Frank's military posture stiffened. Went away. Mark told us you had a very amicable divorce, that you co-parent beautifully. From the kitchen, Jessica's voice was getting louder. You told me you had them last weekend. You showed me pictures on your phone. Those were old pictures, Mark's voice, defensive and cracking. How old, Mark? How long has it been since you've actually seen your children? Jake walked over to the couch and climbed up next to his sister, his face serious beyond his years. It's been 183 days, he said quietly to Margaret. I've been counting. The number hit the room like a physical blow. Margaret's hand flew to her chest, and Frank's face hardened with a kind of expression that spoke of military discipline and deeply held convictions about duty and responsibility. 183 days. My 7-year-old son had been counting every single day since his father abandoned him. The kitchen argument had escalated to the point where Jessica was no longer trying to keep her voice down. 6 months, Mark? 6 months? You haven't seen your own children in 6 months, and you let me plan this whole weekend thinking. Her voice broke. Jesus Christ, what else have you lied about? Frank stood up slowly, his military bearing making him seem even taller. Margaret, take the children to see the pool area. I think the adults need to have a conversation. Oh no, I said firmly, standing as well. Emma and Jake stay right here. They've lived with the consequences of their father's choices for 183 days. They deserve to hear the truth. Margaret looked between us uncertainly, but Jake made the decision for everyone. I want to stay, Mom. I want to know why Daddy lied about us. Emma nodded solemnly beside him, the remote forgotten in her lap. Mark and Jessica emerged from the kitchen, her face streaked with tears, his looking like a man facing execution. Tell them, Jessica said, her voice shaking with fury. Tell my parents the truth about your amicable co-parenting relationship. Frank crossed his arms, every inch the disappointed father. Mark, what exactly is going on here? The silence stretched until Jake, my brave 7-year-old, filled it. Daddy left us a note, he said clearly. He said he needed freedom and didn't want to see us anymore because we made his life too complicated. Margaret gasped, her hand covering her mouth. He took all our college money too, Emma added helpfully. That's why Mom has to work extra shifts at the bookstore. Frank's face was stone. Is this true, Mark? Mark opened and closed his mouth several times, but no sound came out. He called me last night at midnight, I said, my voice steady and clear. Panicking because he'd promised you a video call with children he hasn't spoken to in 6 months. He offered me $80,000 to bring them here and pretend everything was normal. Jessica whirled on Mark. 80,000? From where? We don't have 80,000, she stopped, her face going white. Oh my God. My grandmother's money. You were going to steal from my grandmother's emergency fund to pay for this charade? I was trying to fix things. By lying more? Jessica's voice rose to a shout. By stealing from me to pay your ex-wife to rent your own children? Frank was staring at Mark like he was something he'd scraped off his shoe. Son, I've met some sorry excuses for men in my life, but a father who abandons his children and then tries to buy them back for a weekend performance. Daddy, Emma's small voice cut through the adult anger. Why didn't you love us enough to stay? And that's when Mark finally broke down. Not the desperate panic from last night, but complete, sobbing collapse. He sank onto the couch beside his children, his face in his hands. I did love you. I do love you. I was scared. I felt trapped and I thought if I could start over. But we needed you, Jake said simply. We still need you. I know. God, I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Jessica was staring at him with disgust. You're sorry? Your son has been counting the days since you left, Mark. 183 days of a 7-year-old wondering what he did wrong to make his father disappear. She turned to her parents. We're leaving. Right now. I won't spend another second in the same room as this man, and I sure as hell won't raise my child anywhere near him. Frank nodded approvingly. Good decision, sweetheart. As Jessica grabbed her purse and headed for the door, she paused beside me. I'm sorry, she said quietly. For all of this. For what he put you and your children through. Take care of yourself, I replied. And congratulations on the baby. She managed a sad smile and followed her parents out, leaving Mark alone with the wreckage of his lies. He looked up at Emma and Jake through his tears. Can you ever forgive me? We forgive you, Daddy, Emma said immediately, because she was 5 and still believed in unconditional love. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then, forgiving you and trusting you are different things. My son, wise beyond his years. I gathered my children and headed for the door. Come on, guys. Let's go home. Wait, Mark called after us. Sarah, please. What happens now? I turned back to look at the man I'd once loved, sitting alone in his expensive apartment, surrounded by the ruins of his carefully constructed lies. Now you live with the truth, I said. Just like we've been doing for 183 days. As we walked to the car, Emma slipped her hand into mine. Mommy, are you proud of us for telling the truth? So proud, I said, squeezing her fingers. Truth isn't always easy, but it's always right. Jake was quiet until we reached the car, then looked up at me with those serious eyes. Mom? I think I can stop counting the days now. Why's that, baby? Because now I know Daddy's problems aren't about us. They're about him. 7 years old, and he understood what it had taken me months to learn. We drove home in comfortable silence, 3 people who no longer needed to pretend anything was other than exactly what it was. And for the first time in 183 days, that felt like freedom.